Hi, this is Jeff Jenkins with the Minnesota Career Information System, or MCIS. I am an education program specialist, focuses on doing these trainings.
Hi, and I'm Kristen Lane, and I too am an education program specialist with MCIS and here to help with those trainings as well.
All right, so with this webinar, we are going to navigate the student side of the SPED version of MCIS. We call it the student side because that's where all of the activities, all the career planning activities that students and or clients will be doing. And that's really the only side that clients and students have access to. So first off, I'm just going to sign in using our site administration account for training. And then I had a typo, of course. There we go. All right, now that we are in, when you use like the site admin account or your staff account, you're going to be directed to the site admin side of MCIS. To get over to that student or client side, you'd click here into this button. It says Go to CIS. Sometimes you may be on this side and it will look like this. To bring it up, just click where it says Show and then go to CIS. So what we're going to do in this webinar is navigate using this red mega menu. So all these tabs like Plan, Assessments, Occupations, Education, Employment, and My Portfolio. We're going to do this sort of like you might be working with your client and go through an assessment, show you how to complete one of those, and then start exploring occupations based on the results of that assessment. We will save an occupation of interest. We will also then go into education, look at some programs of study related to that occupation, and then we'll choose some schools that have that program of study within their school. And then when we're done with those and saving the schools that we want to go to with the programs of study we want to do, we'll go into the employment tab and look at some information about obtaining and maintaining employment. And then finally, we will finish with a couple different ways in MCIS in which you can assign activities to your clients or students. So I'm going to start here. Before I actually get in here and show you this assessment, I'm just going to show if you would click on these tabs, it's going to bring up all this kind of information down at the bottom. So right here, kind of in the middle, as you can scroll through up and down there, like what are my interests, informal assessments. If I go to the home page, it's going to have it labeled this way. These areas all match with what's in here. So it's basically just kind of a repeat, but it is a more mobile-friendly way if your clients are using MCIS on their smartphones. So it's a little easier to navigate using this area on a mobile phone. However, when we're doing it on a laptop or a desktop, we prefer to go through the red mega menu instead of having to scroll up and down. So as we hover over the Assessments tab, I'm going to go to this assessment here, the Career Cluster Inventory. Click on that and it brings me to the instructions for this assessment. This is a very classic type of interest inventory where you would rate activities based on this scale. This one is these four from like very much to dislike. Sometimes you might see interest inventories that have a 5-point scale. Some may only have a 3-point scale. And up here at the top of this, we've got the help and tutorials, which is basically going to be on most of the pages in MCIS and kind of give you a quick start, which would be more of the instructions or directions for whatever page that you are on. So it'll help you navigate how to do that or what you need to do on that page. If you have a client who primarily speaks Spanish, you can switch this over by clicking the Espanol button right here, and now it switches the language to Spanish. To go back to English, go click on that button again, and now it's back on English. So I'm going to go down here and I'll show you what this restore button does in just a moment, but I'm going to start this assessment by going down here and clicking rate the activities. So now I am in the career cluster inventory. Here's the first activity in which I could rate whether or not I would like to do this. We can see down here we've got 48 remaining, so there are a total of 48 questions in this assessment. So if I was answering this, I look plant and harvest crops on a farm. That's probably not something that I would like, so I'm going to choose dislike. Install ceramic tile or lay carpet in a house. I might like that. I'm not quite sure. There are some things about it that I like and other things that maybe I wouldn't like so much. So that one I might click not sure, and so on and so forth. So you just kind of click all these answers for whichever one is most appropriate for that activity that it's asking you about. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click back to get back to this instruction page, because we have already completed assessments on here, being this is our training login. I'm going to show you by just clicking this restore that I can go and find results to my assessments. So it takes me to sort and assessment results. You can see we are highlighted here in my portfolio. So the sort and assessments results are right here at the top section, and where are the pages and results I've saved? Right here, sort and assessment results. So every time that a client completes an assessment and saves it, it will be saved here. So now that I have this, I'm going to click on Restore Answer Set 12. This is my most recent that I have completed. So I'm going to save this, or click on this, click Continue, and it's going to bring up my results. So the way the career cluster inventory works is it's going to rank the clusters in order. These are the 16 nationally identified clusters in order from most interest to least interest. So these career clusters, really, they are just a group of occupations that have similarities. The similarities are usually more about like kind of the job tasks or the skills that may be needed to do that job. Now, this order, it's usually probably more important for actually what order it is in as opposed to the actual score. The score will kind of show you relative enthusiasm level for that cluster. So it is nice to see some high scores, because then you know that they may be more interested in that. But even if they are, say, more in the middle, like if they were mostly around 4s or 3s and that kind of thing, it's still important to look at the order and the one that has the highest interest area, because that might be something that that client is more interested in regardless of it being a lower score. So when I look at this, I'm going, okay, well, it looks like I scored highest on ag, food, and natural resources, and I got a couple others that are awfully close with finance and government and public administration. So I'm going to start with the top one, just because that is my highest. I want to see what kind of occupations, what I would be doing for jobs in this cluster. So I click there, and you can see it brings me to the cluster page. So it brings me into where it's agriculture, food, and natural resources. You can also see that we are now in the occupations tab. So we're talking about the cluster. So it would be like clicking here for career clusters. If you click there, it brings you to the same place as this tab would. So if I click on clusters index, it's going to look like this. And here's the list of all of the career clusters. And because I am on the page for ag, food, and natural resources, it has that one open for me already because I had clicked the blue tab. And it has a list of occupations that are part of this cluster. So I can click right here for information about ag, food, and natural resources. And it's going to bring me right back to that page that I was on. You can also use the back button to go back when you need to. All right, so looking at this page, every time you get onto like a cluster page, it's going to just start you with the first topic, which is an overview, a general idea of what you'd be doing, what kind of job this would be, with a video. So you can check on a video and it'll show different occupations that may be a part of this cluster. Following down the topics, what I do in this cluster is going to give you a little bit more information of what kind of occupations, what kind of tasks in that way one would be doing. So I could look through here and it's like, oh, so care for animals in a zoo, might clear forests to prevent fires. If I were to scroll down and just look at all of these, maybe this repair tractors and combines, that might sound interesting to me maybe. I could click on that and it's going to bring me into farm equipment mechanics as the occupation. So if I click back, I go right back to that cluster page and it describes the different activities again that you could be doing. So this is one way to get to the occupation, the specific occupation from the cluster page. As we go down, you can look at the skills that are needed for occupations in this cluster. You can look at what high school courses could be helpful. What activities or hobbies would be helpful to be involved in during high school if I wanted to work. So this is nice as well to give a little bit more information of how can a client really prepare going through high school. So if you have say a younger client, 15, 16 years of age, these pieces of information could be helpful so they can prepare for a career in this cluster if this was of interest to them. A little bit of information about how much these types of occupations will pay, and also it's listed out by education needed. So here, as we look through ag, food, and natural resources, we can see some of the short-term on-the-job training and then the wages associated with that occupation. We keep going down, we can see it goes all the way up to a bachelor's or higher degree for a natural sciences manager, and then the wages for that. So client might see, whoa, that looks awesome. It looks like it pays a lot of money, and they may want to go into that, but that's where all these other information, all these other pieces of information may help a client understand whether or not they would actually like doing that job, if it would be a good fit, that kind of stuff. So it's not just about wages, but it also goes on by, well, do you want to go get a bachelor's degree? Is that really in your best interest? That kind of stuff. So that's where you as the counselor would be helping that client understand. And then what would I study in college? Straight out what it asks. I do love that these topics are set up in these questions. It makes it real easy to find the information and know what it is that you are looking for. So if you were going to pursue an occupation in this cluster, here are some programs of study that one might need to go and study if you wanted to pursue a specific occupation. Going down the list here, so right where it says occupations, here's just another way that you can get to that list of occupations that are a part of this cluster. and it's just done in alphabetical order. We got programs of study. Again, alphabetical order, very similar to what I study in college. Here's the specific that will actually link to different programs in MCIS that are related to ag, food, and natural resources. All right, and then down here was the occupation videos. It'll be the same video that was here on the overview page right over here. So maybe I'm going through this, I read through all this kind of stuff, it sounds really interesting to me. I can go over here, I can click save. I can write a little bit about my thoughts about this cluster, what I might like about it. Click save information, and it's going to take you over to my portfolio, and this time it's going to save in favorites. And we can see that right here at the top. So much like how the assessments get saved in that kind of area, this one goes into favorites. So when you save a occupation or career cluster, we can also see stuff like if you save a school or a program of study, it all comes into this area of favorites. And I can scroll down and look for here, ag, food, and natural resources. This is a cluster that I had saved today, so it was updated on today's date. To go back in there, I can click on it from here, or I can click the back button a couple times. All right, so I've saved this. I think I want to do some kind of occupation in this cluster. So let's go look. I could either look through the occupations by alphabetical order. I could go up here and look at them by education and wages. I do kind of like to do it that way through here. So let's see. I'm kind of interested in, that's what I had clicked on before. So maybe I'm looking at farm equipment mechanics and thinking, hey, kind of a long-term on-the-job training, maybe over a year, maybe there's a certificate type of program. That might make sense for me. And I'm looking at the wages and thinking, hey, that's not too bad. So let me go ahead and click on farm equipment mechanics. And that brings me over to that page that we had gone on before. So we're specifically in the occupation page now. Very similar to the cluster page, where we've got the topics, we've got a video, but now this video will be specific to farm equipment mechanics, show a little bit of what it might be like working as a farm equipment mechanic. We got a little bit of an overview here. Go down the topics, what will work be like? So here's a little bit of like more of the working conditions, what to expect regarding that kind of information. Where would I work? Gives an idea. So sometimes with occupation titles, you may get like either pigeonholed, like I'm just going to only work on a farm. Well, here you can see there are kind of different supplier stores that perhaps one could work as a mechanic for farm equipment. The skills needed, listed out there. Wages. Now, the nice thing here is it does show in detail both Minnesota and the United States to start off with, but within Minnesota, it's going to break it down by region. So if you have a client and they're living in whatever region you happen to be in, great, so they can see that. So maybe it's central Minnesota, they can see the wages that are right there in central Minnesota. If they're looking at, hey, maybe I wanted to do this and live more in the cities, you can see what the wages would be there. Maybe they wanted to move southeast or southwest Minnesota, and you could see there. So it kind of breaks it down that way. You could also go in and select different states. You can view up to 5 states at a time and see the wages in each of those states if you have a client who is interested in moving outside of Minnesota. You could also look at the wages either annually, monthly, or hourly, whichever is going to work best to give an idea of actually how much money a client might make. Will there be jobs in the future? Again, a straightforward question. We're looking at outlook. So just basically how many jobs are going to be available. What are the annual openings? How many are employed right now in both any state that you're looking at or in the United States as a whole? Again, you could select different states, up to 5 at a time that you could compare. Now, this one has it as a graphic version right now, but I find this one more complicated to understand when I am reading through it. So I like to go to view number version, and that'll bring me up straight number. This time they do not have the information broken down by region in Minnesota. It's just all of Minnesota, so you get an idea of that way. So you look at these descriptions underneath. So this is a medium amount of employment in Minnesota. That's not too bad. So we know there are quite a few people working here. It's not a large amount, but regardless, there is quite a few. And we can look over here, annual openings, again, a moderate number. The higher the number, the better. The moderate, if you go up to high, if that was the description, that would be even better. So this is something, if you break it down by month, you get an idea of how many job openings there could be across all of Minnesota for when you're applying for jobs to see if there is an opportunity, if there's going to be opportunities. So that's a good figure to look at. Even if that's kind of sitting there at fewer, we can have this growth and see as a comparison between this occupation and all occupations. So across the United States, we can see there's not that many working there and doing farm equipment mechanics, and there's only a few openings. So we're like, okay, well, let's look at the growth rates, and we can see, well, there's actually a lower growth rate for this occupation compared to all occupations. So this nationally may not have a lot of openings. However, in Minnesota, it's not too bad, specifically, because you can also see that the growth rate, 8.7%, is higher than all occupations in Minnesota. So overall, this is a job that is not bad for openings. So may be a viable opportunity. All right, so then look at how do I prepare? A little bit of information on exactly what kind of training might be needed. So may have to have a high school diploma and probably complete some long-term or on-the-job training. And then what to study. Specifically, here are some programs, some training that one can choose and how it will help. And then different activities that one could do, belong to gain some skills to be a farm equipment mechanic. As we skip down to related information, we can look at maybe I kind of like this job, but I want to see what else there is. Here are some jobs that are very similar. So I could click into, say, let's go, okay, well, I like farm equipment mechanics, I think, but what does welders and solderers have? So I can start looking through that. I can just click back and I'll go right back to the farm equipment mechanic. I could look here at the National Labor Exchange. If I were to click here, it's going to take me to the job search website that I could find openings, current openings for farm equipment mechanics and service technicians in Minnesota. So it'll just start me off there, and once in there, you can kind of change things around and just use that job search website. So this is just one that is specifically linked to MCIS. We just link right to that website. And down here, we've got the videos again, same type of videos that was on the front page of the overview, and some real world interviews where you can just read through, get some ideas of others who have interviewed for this position and what to kind of expect for that. The one piece that I have left for last here, programs of study. This is some programs, this is some training that one could take if they wanted to become a farm equipment mechanic. So we've got some programs here, If we saw that there was some long-term training, usually roughly about a year or so, so maybe you're looking at doing a certificate program. Maybe you want to kind of bump it up. You could do perhaps a 2-year program and get more information, more training, be better prepared for a career as a farm equipment mechanic. So you can look through different options like that. So they're here, these are the ones directly related to the occupation, and here are some other ones to consider. So these, like automotive tech and industrial mechanics, they are very similar. They could prepare you specifically for farm equipment mechanics, but probably give you skills that would relate to it more so than being directly related. But this is where I'm going to hand it off to Kristen and let her take you through some of the education files.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. Having been a school counselor for 20 years, I found that that's a whole conversation just to get up to the programs of study, and that always seemed like it was at least 1 or 2 sessions just to do that career plan assessment, explore the job, then the careers that you'd like to do, and then you get to the occupation or to the program of study part here, and then we go on for the rest of the journey. And you'll see when you're in the programs of study, these are those topics. Let's take a peek at kind of going to play along with the farm equipment mechanics. We're going to continue that career plan journey and think about looking at diesel technology. So as soon as I click into a program of study, it moves you into this education tab across the top. This is that interplay, and there is definitely a bunch of files in the education tab. So this is just letting you know that we're now in the education tab, and we're under the programs of study, and we're looking at diesel technology. And we start with an overview, and this is just information on the type of program, program topics. You'll see that what the topics that they'll include in the program, the concentration. So what are they kind of focusing on? Medium to heavy truck technology. And then also the general training required. So kind of highlighting again that there are many community and technical colleges, that there are certificates, there's an associate's degree available, and about how long it takes, 6 months to a year. The associate's program will take 2 years. So just kind of talking about then what are some options to build on, and that letting you know that there are some but few colleges that may offer a bachelor's in diesel technology. So having those conversations with your client is helpful. This is just a nice overview to sort of show the gamut. Next is going to be under this topic for diesel technology, programs of study, or program admissions. And this will kind of talk about what kind of, if you have a high school student, what kinds of high school classes could be helpful for them to take. So if you have a client that you're working with that's still in high school, these would be maybe something to talk about as far as registering for future classes that they may have at their school that could apply. Then we go to typical coursework, and this is going to be the coursework that they would be taking at the college or through the certificate program. So these would be those topics. And so sometimes when they're looking through, they're like, oh, hey, yeah, that sounds really interesting. And there where we get, we're worried about maybe diesel going in a different direction, but you'll see that they cover truck and tractor chassis, and that they'll cover quite a few different areas. Then they'll talk about the certificate up above, and then they'll add in for the associate's degree what additional types of classes that they would need to take. Things to know. This is always a nice little like catch-all little spot, and it varies greatly from career to career, but in here is usually like additional things that they might need to do. So looking for programs, so it kind of steers them towards looking at those ASE certifications, how the military might also provide some support and training. Again, telling you maybe that you need to purchase your own tools just to be prepared for that, because this may not be somewhere else that's easy to know. So knowing that there's going to be a tool charge up front, and you can start to look at that when you start looking at programs like how do you get your tools and those kinds of details. also just what you need to do. Expect to take classes throughout your career, that this isn't just go and get your certificate. This is a lifelong learning process. So just some good tidbits in here that just don't always fit in a perfect spot somewhere else, and they just put it in this nice things to know. Related information below will loop you into some programs in Minnesota, some programs of study, which is what Jeff was looking at. So these are, again, more programs. So if you're liking diesel technology, or you'd like to think, well, maybe I want to check into some of these other ones, again, you can save, he saved that program, that group of programs of study earlier. Below, financial aid, just kind of linking it here because this is a related information. So kind of going the whole gamut with ending with financial aid resources. So there are scholarships that are related that links you right to our scholarship bank, and there's over 3,000 scholarships in MCIS that students can access in a few different ways. And one of the ways is just to look under the aid for mechanics when you're looking up a program of study for a college, and you can save that whole list. There's quite a few there, but there's some other resources that we'll talk about more when we go into the 30-minute webinars on education, on how to look up more scholarship and do that paying for scholarship search. So I'm going to use that handy back button right here, back myself back out here. Under financial aid was occupations. So diesel technology, occupations that directly relate to diesel technology, and you'll see that farm equipment comes right back up in here. Technology, diesel technology is the program, but these are also additional programs that you can go in and study, and some that are related. So going in and trying to find a diesel technology program, you can click into the Minnesota post-secondary institutions, where we have all 140 Minnesota colleges listed and accessed through here. We're still in the education tab. We can go in if there are, in this middle part will tell you this is just the min-state or the min-SKU schools. If there were other programs like at the University of Minnesota system or private colleges, it would also be listed here. But for diesel technology, it's that particular program of study is only found in the min-state schools. So here you'll see the list of the colleges that are offering programs. And so you can look at each one and see, well, Alexandria Tech will have an Associates of Applied Science. They also have a diploma. And you can go down here, kind of check them out. Dakota County Technical has a certificate, an Associates of Applied Science, and diploma. So you might kind of go, well, I wonder what that's about. Dakota seems like it's kind of far. Oh, wait, I live pretty close here to Brooklyn Park. They have the associates, the diploma. Let me check that out. You can go into the program descriptions, and in here, it will break down what a diploma is and kind of explain what is involved in earning a diploma, what kind of experience you'll get, and then really what it's preparing you to do. And they'll have a couple different diplomas. You'll see a couple different options in the different locations, and then it'll also give what an associate's program is and what that entails and what kind of coursework you're taking and what it prepares you for as far as a career. So Hennepin Tech looks like a good program. I am going to click into the school, still in that education tab, and here we are now on an information file for Hennepin Technical College in Eden Prairie, Brooklyn Park. And this landing page brings you to this middle part where it has the school's contact information. You can link right directly to the North Hennepin Tech website, as well as there is a video, which this spring we're really excited about because we just updated over 2,000 college videos that are now in 360 virtual tour formats. So you can jump in there and really get a chance to tour a college, which can be a little bit of a challenge right now with COVID-19 guidelines. It can be hard to really get on a campus and kind of swirl around. So this is a really nice tool that we just added and updated this summer, and we look to be adding more 360 videos. Then over here will just be also at a glance. So just some really like highlight information of Hennepin Tech. And you're thinking, well, okay, that sounds interesting. Let's look into here. We'll look into the student body. You can get some information on the breakdown of the students, how many students are full-time, part-time, breakdown of the diversity, also how many students are out of state, international, and the age of the students. So the percentage of students who are 25 or older are 55%. So when trying to find a fit for your client and thinking about how they are as a learner, these can be some really good topics to kind of cover with them. The cost, this is always can be a little bit hard to find on a college's website. And I just want to point out that the costs are updated for 2019, 2020. Your part of your subscription fees for MCIS include that here at Minnesota, so myself and Jeff and our crew send out a college survey to all of the Minnesota colleges, and we get their information back, and throughout the year we are constantly updating all of these topic areas as they send the information into us. So we like to be right on with what is the most current at each school. So you'll get their tuition rates. And then you down here, what's nice to kind of follow that tuition is then financial aid, where they'll have the contact information, but also talk about what's the average award amount. And that can be really helpful when trying to look at that cost and, oh, I don't want to pay that much. Well, look at how much comes in grants and work studies to sort of offset, and that 57% of freshmen are getting financial aid. So kind of talking about then also their loan when they graduate. So what is the average loan debt for the last graduating class? And that helps them kind of think about college in those terms. Admissions is also important when working with your clients, because this will help you with understanding what are the colleges looking at or what programs are looking at for their admissions. So for incoming students, what do you need to be accepted? So it's virtually open. How many people apply by gender? How many are accepted? What do you need for education and re-education requirements? So you must have a high school diploma or equivalent. Is not required. So that might be nice depending on your clients that you're working with and their situation. Also in here, we'll give you some admissions information, application information, when are the deadlines, what are the fees, and then also exams. So to help prepare your clients, there are exams that they might need to take. This one, they're saying that they'll be taking the Accuplacer for services only. So they may or may not need to take a test, and this will help you to help them prepare, because test prep can be really a part of their career planning process that they need to consider. So just other variables that the college may consider in acceptance. Academics, and this is kind of nice. I like going into here with students to kind of talk about those ratios of staff to faculty. And so 1 teacher to 21 students, and the lecture size is 25 in a classroom. And I know in our building, kids would often go, wow, I have 38 in my class for chemistry, or my English class, and ooh, a lab with only 20. So those numbers can be really helpful when working with clients and talking about what is that space going to look like, because not all schools are the same. I know I'll tell kids personally, my college lecture size, the average lecture was 220. So they were really big. So they do vary. And so this can be really helpful in working with your clients. Student life. Colleges often have other activities, so they'll list them here, and that's really nice to point out, because there is something more to just going in and taking a class. That sometimes getting involved in the school can be enriching, and there's activities that they enjoy doing. So that's a way to point it out. Student services, super important. I really went into here a lot with students on a 504 plan or an IEP to just really start to talk about how IDEA changes when they go on to college, and how important that is for them to know what kind of services are available, and to have those conversations about them having to be advocating for themselves. So it's for them to know that these services are there, and here's who their contact person is, because someone isn't going to be coming to them all the time necessarily. And so they need to work on how do they navigate and get the resources that they need. So this can be a really helpful information, and each school will be slightly different. Career services, just the link for what the college will do once they finish their program to help them support getting employment as well. And then related information are just information files on their colleges, all the colleges programs of study. Okay, whew. So once we get through that piece of it, looking at the college, you may decide that you're ready to save this one. You really liked it, so you can save it. You can make your notes if you want to. That one's close to home. It puts it in your My Portfolio under Minnesota Schools, and there we can see we saved that one today. And we can click right back to it. And you can also set up right here with a little tab for sending an email to the college to get more information. Really nice. Also, they can do a letter for snail mail, same kind of a format letter, helps them write. You can also print the topic areas from the college as it's pertinent if you have a student or a client that you want to make a printout of certain pieces of this file. You can choose your file. Up at the top, these blue tabs here, choosing a school will have a bunch of resources that are also in the education file on support resources for choosing a school. The cluster index is going to go through all those clusters that Jeff was sharing in alphabetical order again, and then also the title index where you can look up Minnesota schools by title. But I'm going to go to compare, and we want to look at, we were at Hennepin Technical College, and then we were also looking at the other program, and this is where you have to go on your memory, was St. Cloud State and Technical. Okay, I'm going to back up into that. All right, overclicked, sorry about that. So going to St. Cloud Technical and Community College, I want to select that one. So we can compare up to 3 schools here on the side that have those programs. A third program was Alexandria Technical and Community College. So now you can have 3 schools that you may want to look into from that earlier list. And then what it'll do is it'll pull up all 3 colleges, and they can compare them side by side on each one of these topics that they have. And so that's just a nice way to help compare. And then the students can click in and also find out more information on each school and save their information. All right, so that's really kind of the walkthrough of working with a student from looking at an assessment, choosing an occupation based on their assessment results, and then trying to find a program of study from their occupation list. And now we're going to kind of come back and look at the education tab just quickly to see that there are just a few other files that we are going to cover more in depth when we do our 30-minute webinar on the educational files. There is some additional information on short-term training, apprenticeships, and paying for college. So once they've picked their school and they've gone through their program, then the next step is to look for employment, and getting ready to find a job is this tab right here called employment. And down here, I'm just going to skip to this one, how do you look and find a job, so that those job searches, looking at that National Labor Exchange, how to do an interview. So a lot of resources on finding a job. And then job success, we'll have a lot of files on how to keep a job, all those soft skills like obtaining, overcoming barriers, and resolving problems that come up at work. So just a lot of good information on how to keep and maintain your job. And then how do I create or update my resume? So before, sometimes students or clients are going into college, if they're looking at scholarships or they're getting ready to apply for a part-time job or a full-time job, this is a good spot for them. They can begin this resume creator at any time. And so I'm just going to highlight that the resume creator has these broken down into these topics, just like any resume would be. And so you can see their history. This is their high school that they went to, and when they graduated, you can always add a school. Their license and certificates, if they got any ASE certifications maybe while they're in high school, or they can add their college if they are in college, workshops and training that they may have gotten, any standardized test scores, paid and unpaid leave work. And so here is where they can add work experiences. These little blue tabs, just so you can see real quick, I'll show you those. They just are line by line for them to fill out those particular pieces of information that are needed. So they can do it for volunteer and work experience, military. They can do it for their achievements, and it breaks achievements down into both activities and skills. So when working with your client, as things come up that you hear them do, this can be someplace you can direct them to go, hey, let's put that in that resume header really quick while we're talking about it, because that would be something good on your resume. Contact information and references. So this is where you can edit your personal information. And then references. We know that sometimes references aren't always put in resumes anymore, but it's a nice place to also hold that information in case when they're doing online applications, they can just pull it up when they need to. Resume, create a resume. So in here is where you get to choose from some different format styles. And we have just some sample ones here. Let's look at this functional skills sample. We can decide what to include. If we want to include dates, I always think dates are good, and maybe they did an online part of the application, so they really don't need to list the references. They were somewhere else. And then we can just pull up a sample of what the resume creator will create for your client. And you can just see that it puts all those individual fillable boxes into a format. They can save. All of these resumes are saved under their My Portfolio and saved and uploaded file searches. So these are, we've gone through now assessments, we've explored occupations, we've identified some programs to get some additional training. We looked at them in setting up resumes and how to look, getting information on applying for a job. We covered a lot of these career steps, and now Jeff is going to show you how you can assign activities to your clients and guide them through that career decision-making process and completing their personal learning plans using a career plan.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. So yes, as Kristen just mentioned, I was going to show the personal learning plan. So before I get into that career plan, which will be just another way to have your client work on the career planning process. So we've already done one, navigating through the red mega menu, as Kristen said. The career plan will be another option to use to really help a client go through the career planning process. I'm going to go down here to the footer, this black footer here, and go into MCIS resources, because I want to show you what the personal learning plan looks like. I'm going to click into tools for counselors and teachers, and then go into guides and instructional tools. Right over here to personal learning plan, and I'm going to pull up a blank form. Click OK. And I'm showing you this because one of the neat things about MCIS is that it automatically populates a PLP, or personal learning plan, as activities are completed. There is a statute in Minnesota that every high school student should have a personal learning plan. So that's, how MCIS really kind of works with counselors and teachers who are in a high school. This is one of the nice features about MCIS. This personal learning plan for voc rehab could be used more for as just kind of the summary of your client's career decision-making process. It could be potentially used for plan justification if you're doing anything along those lines, where you have to give some reasons why they may want to go into a certain career field, if they have a certain career goal, why they have that, because this operates, like I had said, as that summary. So as you go down, all the pieces of information that we went through, going through that red mega menu, doing the assessment, exploring occupation, saving programs of study and schools, All of that when saved, and this is why it is important to save that. I know that when I went through the occupation, I believe that I had actually forgot to save the occupation that I was looking at. So it's important to save because that's when it's going to get loaded into this personal learning plan. So if you want to use this as your summary page for their career decision making, it would be good to have your clients be sure to save the ones that they are interested in. So right here, we're looking at assessment. So when saved, and then what was learned. So those reflection boxes that come up at when you start saving it, any little notes that you want to type or anything, you can kind of type what was learned in that assessment or what you liked about it or anything along that line. Keep going down here, occupations and clusters of interest. That was the part that I was going through. So when saved, it'll populate right here. So which occupation, the date it was saved, and what was learned again about that occupation, or it could be written down what was liked. Keep scrolling down. We got some things that are more directly related to schools. We've got course plan and the recommended courses, test scores, but more of what we had done with the programs of study and post-secondary schools. Here's all the stuff that will come from that resume. So kind of getting some of that information written up to begin with. Will populate here. This is more of that experiential types of things. So if they've done some volunteering or any extracurriculars or their employment of how that may shape what it is that they want to do. Sometimes you get people who working in a job and they just keep kind of building up to it. So it's like, hey, I've done this type of work before, and that's why I want to take the next step into this type of career. Sometimes it's, hey, I worked this job before and I hated it. So I'm doing something completely opposite of what I had been doing. So all of this kind of stuff that generally goes on a resume can definitely influence your client's career goal. So all of that, like I said, all the stuff that we have already done gets populated on the PLP. Going into some of these other things, like you can see here, action plan, support network, basically the career goal that was at the very top. I'm going to scroll up there. Career goals, education plans, all of these type of things. This will come from the career plan, the tool in MCIS that really kind of functions when speaking based on education terms, really kind of functions as a lesson plan that has assignments, worksheets that are included into that into the plan. So to access that, it's either here in the plan tab, right here at the front, career plan, or over here in my portfolio, right here in the top in the middle column under career plan. Clicking on either one will take you into the career plan. So like I said, this is really kind of sort of almost like that fixed lesson plan. There are activities that are associated. So it's more like, hey, you assign your client to get started in one of these levels. So it's typically going with getting started. You can see it's listed for grades 8, 9. Looking deeper would be 10, 11. Next steps would be 12. So that's kind of the general order. No, it doesn't mean that your client has to be an 8th or 9th grader to do this part, or that if your client was an 11th grader, they couldn't do this part. This is just kind of the general order of the levels. So all of the activities would be kind of the starting activities that you would have for the career planning model, essentially. So just kind of how that goes through. And so even if your client is not a high schooler, you can still have them do this career plan, even though it says it's kind of listed for this, but it was designed more with education in mind. So that's where it's just, again, the starting point. These activities will build on the activities and getting started. Same thing, next steps will build on the activities from each of those. Now, in each of these levels, they're going to be split up into these 5 sections. As you can see, just by the titles, know myself, research options, set goals, make plans, those types of things, it is essentially the career planning model. And this is where it's sort of that lesson plan, if you will, for career planning. So each one of these is almost a lesson plan in and of itself. This would be something you would just assign. You can have your clients start working on that level. So know myself is going to be more like taking assessments, getting to know what your interests are, the personality, skills, and how all that relates to different occupations. Researching is just exploring occupations. Evaluating the options are some activities that will help your clients think a little bit more about the options that they think they want to pursue, to kind of clarify whether or not those would be good fits to pursue, if that's something they really would like to do. Setting goals, this is where the career goals, personal goals, all that kind of stuff. You could even have some of the reflection boxes that are in this part set up a little bit more to be kind of like what they're expecting voc rehab to be like, or how they would want voc rehab to help within those goals. So that kind of thing. And then making plans is just how they're going to achieve the goals. And the goals are really informed by all this research and assessments and different things, the activities that they've done to help them with their career choice. So let's take a look at what one of these looks like. To get into it, you can either go from the hyperlink here, or you can go up here into the blue tab. And I'm going to start with the first level, getting started. To get going where the activities are, you got to click on one of the sections on the side. I'm just going to start with the first one, so it goes top down order. So know myself, here's where assessments are located, the activities. So the know myself part has the assessments. The activities are up at the very top. Here are the sections in MCIS that are used. So to do from the career plan, if you wanted to do the career cluster inventory, you could click on it right from here to get to it. You don't have to do it from like the PDF or anything like that. That's just going to describe what the assessment actually is. These other two will be some activities, basically worksheets, to help people start thinking about what they want to do, what they might like. So if I were to click on one, say this thinking about me, you can see the worksheet, instructions on how to do that. It is a fillable form. And you go through and have your client fill out this kind of stuff, and it may or may not really be of help in thinking about their own skills, their interests, just who they are, their personality, different things like that. So that's what this worksheet is designed to help with. We can exit out of there. And then down at the bottom are going to be reflection boxes. So things, what do you know about yourself? What did you learn from the assessments? What are the clusters that you might be interested in after taking the assessment? And then what are the occupations that may interest? So you can see how this is one whole setup to get started with career planning, and then all these other activities kind of build on that. So now the components that you're going to use are going to be the occupations, maybe programs of study to just research options. Worksheets, again, they can go there. Evaluating, so like this, evaluate my occupation options. Let me show you this one, how it just kind of breaks it down a little bit more into that decision process. So here, if the client has identified a few occupations, they would write that down on the side here, and then write 3 things about that. So if they're looking at the job tasks or work activities or just what they would be doing in that job, could be written down right here, and then giving a positive factor for the +1 to +3. So how much they would really like it. If it's something they would really enjoy, it can be a +3. If it's something that they just kind of enjoy, it becomes more of a +1. Column 5, they put in 2 or 3 things that may concern them about that occupation. And then the negative scores, if so if they really are concerned about it or really wouldn't like that aspect about that job, it would be a -3. If it's just not really their favorite, it's just, you know, somewhat of a concern, maybe it's closer to -1. And then you can help your client add all of that up to get a total score. The higher the positive number, the more that they probably want to pursue that occupation. If it was a lower number, more negative, then it's unlikely that they would like to pursue that option. So that's how that works. And there's reflection boxes and a place for them to write the goal right from here. And we'll go into these really in more detail and how to use this in our 30-minute webinar. So we'll get a webinar. It'll be on the PLP and career plan. Same with the assessments tab, the occupations tab, education and employment, as Kristen was saying. So all these things that we're kind of going over today, we'll go more in depth in this stuff in our 30-minute webinars. And we can look at more of the activities that might be in the looking deeper next steps part as well. So I'm going to just jump over and show you kind of the end point of the career plan. So I click on the report, and this is where it's really more of a journal. You can get an idea of what your client was really thinking about all of these things as they would fill out the reflection boxes. So you got the knowing myself part, so it's all just split right up into these main sections, and then the different reflection boxes that were located in that section. So this goes on down, and you'd have, so here you can see what the career goals, this one was filled out under setting goals, education plans, the experiential learning. This is where like all the job shadows or different field trips or informational interviews, that kind of stuff that you may have had your client work on, that gets filled out here in the career plan. Or it can be filled out straight on the personal learning plan, and Kristen is actually going to show that here in a little bit. But that kind of stuff comes from the career plan as well and gets populated on that PLP. But generally speaking, that is the career plan. Like I had said, it is just another tool in MCIS, another way to have your clients work through that career planning process. Now, Kristen's going to show you another way to assign activities and basically have your clients kind of figure out what they want to do for a career.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I like the versatility of MCIS, being able to use the red mega menu, be able to use this career plan to get to different activities, getting started, looking deeper in next steps. And checklist is really just another way to organize and assign specific activities that come right from career plan. We have a curriculum in MCIS. There are over 170 activities that are in all of these career plan section that can also be pulled and made into what are called checklists. So I'm going to show you where checklists are found, and you can see career plan right here. Checklists can be found right next to it under the plan tab. Also under my portfolio, you'll see that there is career plan right here. How do I create a career plan? And then how can I track my career activities? So these you can have them, they can interplay. So they can be doing a career plan activity as well as a checklist activity. So a checklist, though, is just a way to organize your activities. Up here is a help tutorial, and I'm just going to point this one out really quick for a quick start. If you're working with a client, they can independently begin to work on those career plan activities through checklists. And this is a nice visual. The checklists have step-by-step what they need to do to complete using checklists, as well as written instructions right alongside. So those are help in that help and tutorials box, and they can be really helpful. When your students their clients first log in, they are going to see a message that you can edit and type, as well as some supporting documents. So if you want them to save some worksheets, like Jeff was pointing out, that how to evaluate your occupation or the different PDFs, they can be saved and uploaded into my portfolio And there's directions on how to do that, but they would go right up into their stored files on My Portfolio. And we'll show you more of that in the 30-minute webinar, but I just wanted to highlight that when they're doing those forms that they can be saved, and that's a really nice feature. There is also some other supporting documents, and these are all editable, and we'll show you how to do that and customize them in that 30-minute webinar as well. So the next thing that your client will see is just this key, which just tells them where their progress is on any particular checklist. Now, checklists can be assigned multiple, if you have an example, if you're working with a high school student, they could be assigned to checklists at their high school. They could have grade level checklists. These are default checklists that we have for training, but the grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 ones also include activities that meet all of this Minnesota state career standards. And so those are our default checklists. So your client could be, if they're in high school, still assigned to a particular checklist, so they may see multiple ones on their account. I created just a Kristen's caseload checklist to show you some things that might be kind of more activities that are focused towards voc rehabilitation, because you may not be doing course planner or ACT activities that are in some of these default ones. They're quite lengthy. I can show you very quickly. They're pretty involved. And so I really just made a copy of this checklist and pared it down to a smaller one, and just show you that it is customizable. When we do that 30-minute webinar, we'll show you how to do that. So here is what they'll see, some tips on the top for like help support icon, when something is just gonna, when an item is just gonna be editable. And then also a key here tells you that if it has asterisks, that we've made it a required activity. And those are all things that you can customize. So this list of activities basically just can be organized in a variety of ways. Writing a career goal, these link you right to that career box. So what are your career goals? It'll let you know when you saved it last, so these can be updated. So after today, my career goal might be to look more into the farm equipment mechanic programs, and maybe think about joining FFA to get more experience. So those might be working towards their career goals. And you can insert the dates so that you can save them. There was already a goal served earlier. I would like to get a job that'll pay me enough money to move out of my mother's house and pay all the video games I want to play that night. So you can see that maybe each time that they're doing this career goal, that maybe it starts to evolve as you're doing more activities and they're maturing. So we can save that information. So with checklists, you can just have them go right to a specific activity. You can have them right to a reflection box. You can have them go right to a particular interest inventory. So you can have them go to one of those assessments. Right here is complete the career cluster inventory that Jeff had started. Because there are previous ones in our demo, they're already here on Restored, but if you were to click this career cluster inventory button, they could do another career cluster assessment. I'm gonna use the back button. The other one I wanted to show was down here. These can be put in a sequential order. You can't necessarily see them, but when you customize them, you can build on lessons. So for example, you might want to have them begin to collect information for their resume. And then you can actually have them complete the resume below. So you can have them read some information on going into building a resume, and then have them click right into here, which brings you back to that resume creator, where they can begin to input additional information into their resume. So the checklists are really one of my favorite ways to actually assign assign activities from the career plan, and you'll see over in here, if they come from the career plan, you can make up your own. There's some that if you have some favorite activities that you want to do with a client, you want them to go to a specific website and do some other research that you like, you can also incorporate that activity into a goal here, and just really customize it to your own. So this really will wrap up today. We showed you today's webinar, we showed you all 3 ways. You can use the red mega menu to work with a client. You can work through the career plan and go through individual lessons and do that kind of more of the journey approach. You can assign those specific activities to your client through checklists. And have a lot of fun. This is a big program, and today was really just an overview of this webinar. We are going to be doing live webinars in July where we'll go over some of these same topics, and then we also will be publishing out those 30-minute webinars to really go in depth on each one of these tabs today. Thank you for your attention. We were just really trying to give you that brief overview. We also want to remind you where to contact us if you have any questions. Up here on the login page for technical support, we have contact technical support, and this will link you right to getting some help from one of us in the MCIS department. Part of your fees pay for us to be here to help you, and this is a big program, and we would like to help you work with your clients as best as possible, and just know that we're here for you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.